The Master Watchmaker, a Sherlock Holmes novella, Chapter 1. The Harley Street Connection. It was during the winter of 1910 that one of the most curious cases ever to engage the attention of Sherlock Holmes came before us. London lay beneath a blanket of fog. The gas lamps glowed like distant stars, and the streets echoed with the clatter of cabs and the occasional growl of a motor car. Holmes sat in his armchair beside the fire, violin resting across his knees. I was reading the Times when a knock sounded upon the door. Mrs. Hudson entered. "A gentleman from Harley Street, Mr. Holmes." Our visitor proved to be Sir Reginald Ashcroft, one of London's most distinguished surgeons. His face was pale and deeply troubled. "I have come because of a theft." Holmes raised an eyebrow. "Valuable jewels?" "No." "State secrets?" "No." "Then perhaps something far more important." The surgeon stared. "How could you know?" Holmes smiled. "Because only truly important matters bring eminent men to Baker Street at 7 o'clock in the morning." The surgeon removed a gold pocket watch from his waistcoat. "I am one of dozens of Harley Street physicians who own watches made by Frederick William Phillips." At once Holmes became attentive. The watchmaker. The same. I knew the name well. Frederick Phillips had earned a reputation throughout London for crafting precision timepieces used by surgeons and medical specialists. For men whose work often depended upon measuring seconds accurately, his watches were considered unsurpassed. 3 physicians have recently reported that their watches were stolen, continued Ashcroft. An inconvenience, perhaps. It would be, were it not for what happened next. He handed Holmes a newspaper clipping. The headline read, "Prominent physician found dead." The article described a respected doctor who had collapsed suddenly in his consulting rooms. Holmes read the piece twice. "Curious. There have been 3 deaths." I lowered my newspaper. 3? The surgeon nodded grimly. "And each victim owned one of Phillips's watches." The room fell silent. At length Holmes rose from his chair. "My dear Watson," he said, reaching for his coat, "I suspect our old friend the watchmaker may once again find himself at the center of danger." Chapter 2. The Master Watchmaker. The following afternoon we arrived at Frederick Phillips's workshop. The familiar scent of brass polish and machine oil greeted us. Tiny gears sparkled beneath the gas lamps. Clocks ticked softly from every wall. Phillips himself emerged from the rear workroom. His expression darkened when he saw Holmes. "More trouble?" "I fear so." After hearing Sir Reginald's account, the watchmaker sat heavily upon a stool. "I know the 3 men who died." "Did they have anything in common?" asked Holmes. Phillips hesitated. Then he walked to a locked cabinet. From within he withdrew a leather-bound ledger. "This must remain confidential." Holmes nodded. Phillips opened the book. Inside were detailed records dating back many years. The names of prominent physicians filled its pages. Holmes suddenly became very still. "Remarkable. What is it?" I asked. He pointed to several entries. Each of the dead doctors had participated in the same private medical research program. A program financed by a mysterious industrial syndicate. "A coincidence?" I suggested. Holmes shook his head. "There are no coincidences here, Watson." Chapter 3. Sir Arthur Conan Doyle calls. That evening, another visitor arrived at Baker Street. To my astonishment, it was Sir Arthur Conan Doyle himself. The famous author removed his hat and smiled. I appear to have walked into one of my own stories. You may have done exactly that, Holmes replied. Doyle laughed. Then perhaps I can help. The author revealed something extraordinary. Years earlier, he had become acquainted with Frederick Phillips while purchasing a watch. During their conversations, Phillips had discussed a remarkable invention, a miniature recording mechanism capable of measuring time and movement with unprecedented accuracy. The early ancestor of what would later become the taximeter. The invention attracted considerable attention, Doyle explained. From whom? Industrial investors, military contractors, foreign businessmen. Holmes exchanged a glance with me. Suddenly, the thefts and deaths seemed part of a much larger picture. Chapter 4. The Russian Connection. Within days, Holmes uncovered evidence pointing toward an international conspiracy. Agents operating in London were attempting to obtain the plans for Phillips's latest inventions. Among them was a Russian industrial magnate named Count Alexei Volkov. Officially, he manufactured railway equipment. Unofficially, he was known throughout Europe as a collector of scientific secrets. When Holmes learned that Volkov had recently arrived in London, his suspicions hardened. Why would a Russian magnate care about a watchmaker? I asked. Holmes lit his pipe. Because precision changes everything. He gestured toward Phillips's workshop plans: transport, navigation, commerce, military logistics. His eyes gleamed. The future belongs to whoever controls time. Chapter 5. The Underground Chase. The breakthrough came on a foggy night near Charing Cross. Holmes had arranged a meeting with one of Volkov's agents. Instead, it proved to be an ambush. 3 armed men emerged from the shadows. Holmes reacted instantly. "Run, Watson!" The chase thundered through London's streets, down staircases, along deserted platforms, into the tunnels of the underground itself. The criminals carried a leather case containing stolen documents from Phillips's workshop. For nearly half an hour, the pursuit continued through darkness and steam. At last, Holmes cornered their leader beside a maintenance tunnel. The man raised a revolver. A moment later, a railway worker's lantern struck his hand. The weapon clattered away. Inspector Lestrade's officers surged forward. The conspiracy had collapsed. Chapter 6. The Secret of the Ledger. Back at Baker Street, Holmes finally explained everything. The deaths had not been random, nor had the stolen watches. Hidden within each watch case was a microscopic identifying mark known only to Phillips. The marks linked the owners to confidential research projects. Someone had been using the watches to identify and target individuals possessing valuable technical knowledge. The watches themselves were innocent, Holmes explained. They merely pointed toward the real victims. Phillips shook his head sadly. My life's work almost became a weapon. Holmes smiled. Instead, it became a clue. Chapter 7. The Baker Street Finale. A week later, Holmes arranged one final trap. Volkov himself attended. What he believed would be a secret sale of Phillips's newest invention. The meeting took place in a warehouse overlooking the Thames. Inside waited Holmes, Watson, Lestrade, and a dozen officers. Volkov entered carrying a briefcase. Where are the plans? Holmes stepped from the shadows. Safely beyond your reach. The Russian's expression collapsed. Within minutes, the entire network had been arrested. Years of industrial espionage came to an end. Epilogue. Time and Legacy. Several weeks later, Holmes and I visited Phillips one final time. The watchmaker was seated at his bench, assembling a movement no larger than a coin. Sunlight filtered through the workshop windows. Around him, hundreds of clocks ticked gently. Holmes picked up a completed pocket watch. "Your finest work?" Phillips smiled. "No, Mr. Holmes." "What then?" "A beginning." He pointed toward a series of engineering drawings. Among them were improved taximeters and other inventions yet to come. "The world changes," he said quietly. "Someone must build the tools that help it move forward." As we departed, Holmes paused at the doorway. "Mr. Phillips, yes. History will remember great politicians and generals." The watchmaker looked up, but Holmes smiled. "It is craftsmen such as yourself who quietly change the world." Outside, the bells of London rang the hour, and somewhere beyond the fog, the future was already beginning to take shape. The end. From the unpublished papers of Dr. John H. Watson.